Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Greetings. Most students have difficulty with word problems. They dislike word problems. This is mostly because of their lack of ability in interpreting word problems, translating them into their equivalent mathematical language, which are symbols and the relation between them. In this video lecture, I intend to give some hints and some advices about this subject, and hope that will be beneficial to the audience. Now, I will be presenting an example at the basic algebra level, but it gives you, I intend to give the technique of setting up, and that technique, even though it is from an elementary example, can really be applied to all kind of word problems. And it's kind of, again, I'm repeating myself, it's kind of universal. Now, let's start. At the end, by the way, I have another word problems that comes from the book of 1001 Arabian Nights. So hopefully you get the chance also to watch that one. That will follow after this one. Now, two shepherds, they come together and greet one another and sit and have a tea to drink together, and they kind of come to argument. I don't mean physical confrontation, but argument as a discussion. One of them says to the other one that if you give me one of your goats, lamb, sheep, doesn't matter, one of your goats, I will have twice as many as you have. Then the other one look at his and look at his number of lamb and goats and the other one, and he said, well, that's not fair. If you give me one of yours, then we will have equal number of goats. Now, the question is, how many goats do they have? Now, you can do that with your finger, trial and error, and get the number. But we want to approach this one systematically and learn from that how to set up word problems. And hopefully it will be beneficial. Now, behind the board, I always say in my lectures, there is a whiteboard, dry erase, and I'm in my apartment, and it was reflecting the light and giving very kind of lousy video. So I came with the idea of covering it, and also I don't have somebody, unfortunately, behind the camera to zoom in and out for me. So I'm making that in writing kind of large enough, and hopefully will be visible to you. But I also try to read them for you, so that if you wish, if you wish to write a note, you may do so. Okay, let's see what we can do about the argument of these two shepherds. No, okay, I wrote here, let me hang it for you. No, two shepherds argue, I read the story for you. No, what I have written for you is that read the story problem 2 or 3 times without taking any notes. Of course, with concentration. Just read it from the head to the end without taking any information out. After you read it 1, 2, or 3 times, then go back and start from the beginning and cut it into segments. And at each segment that the word problem is giving you information, stop, pause, convert that information into their equivalent mathematical system. Mathematical symbol. Are you with me so far? Now, let's go and demonstrate this one through this shepherd. So again, you know the story. I read it for second time for you because you have to do it, read it. Two shepherds, they come to argument. One of them says, if you give me one of your sheep, I will have twice as many as you have. The other one say, hey, that is not fair. If you give me one of yours, we will have equal number of sheep. The question is, how many goats, lambs, or sheep do they have? Each of them. Now, we go back. I start from the beginning. Two shepherds are arguing, is that right? One of them says to the other one, if you give me one of yours, I will have twice as many as you have. If you would like to write this one, you're welcome to that. Now, let's see where I will stop what I just said. Where do I pause? He says, two shepherds argue. He says, one of them says to the other one, if you give me one of your goat, stop. He says, if you give me one of your goat. That means they have some number of goats, each of them. Is that right? So let's assume if, let's say, X is the number of goats that one of them has. Doesn't matter which one. And let Y to be what? The number of goats that second one has. You see the story says, if you give me one of your goats. Now, if is what? Whatever you see the if is you make an assumption. That based on that assumption, you continue. It's not that you say it's iffy. The logic in the logic and in the theorem. So you take the if, which is really premises after that, you take that one as for granted that is correct. Say, if you give me one of yours, after if comes one of yours, that means both of them, they have some number of lamb, some goats or whatever, otherwise they wouldn't come and sit discuss. If there is no goat, there is no discussion taken over, and we are not in joking. Now, again I'm repeating, let X to be the number of lamb, goats or sheep that the first one has, doesn't matter which one is first, and Y to be the number of goats that second one has. So we said I wrote this one. Now you pause and continue reading it. He says, if you give me one of yours, one of them says to the other one, which one? Let's say the one that has Y number of goats, he says to the one that has X number of goats. Now he's talking. He says, if you give me one of yours, stop, pause. What does giving me one of yours mean? Means is a if, and after if you always take what? You take everything for granted. Now here he does not have any more X number of goats. He's losing one. He says, if you give me one. So this one will lose one. So the number of lambs or goats that this will have now is X minus 1, X less 1. And the number of goats or lamb that second one has is Y 1 more, Y 1 extra. So we set it up to this point. We continue to read it further. So I have this one for you to put it up if you wish to write. Sorry for the primitive equipment I have, but it does convey the message, and doesn't matter if it is fancy or not. As a matter of fact, maybe it's even more effective. It's classic. Now, it says the second shepherd, now here I wrote, whatever I just said in words, I have written for you if you wish to write it. Now, continue. What does he say again? He says, if you give me one of yours, he says, if you give me one of yours, you stop at that point. That means he will have one less, he will have one more. So the number of goats that this one has is now one less, the number of goats that this one has is one more. Then continue reading. You are dividing them into segments, in reality paraphrasing. You are dividing them into segments and what? And getting information out of it. Now, if you wish to write it, you are welcome. I guess you can pause it, and zoom it, so you have the, the power on your computer to do all of this and make it readable if you wish to do so. But from my boards, I suppose we can do that as good. Now again, continue. It says, if you give me one of yours, I will have twice as many as you have. That means what? That means the one that has y has one more, he has one less. The relation between them is that y plus 1 is twice x minus 1. Because it says, if you give me 1, I will have twice as many as you have. So when he gives 1, this is the number of goats he has, this is the number of goats he has. The relation between them is that this is twice this one. Do you follow me so far? So let's now put all this information into a table and see what we can come up with. Now one thing we do, you are welcome to write, I think there is no need really. One thing you have to know is that since we are talking about goats and lamb or sheep or whatever, we know that the number that we are dealing with should be positive integer. So if we end up to be negative when we set up the corresponding mathematical formula, we know that is outside out of the subject. Now here I set it up so that when you make algebraic manipulation of what? Of the previous one, which was what? Y plus 1 equal 2x minus 1, and you adjust it, you end up with this equation. Equation in two variables. Alright? Now, you can set it up, the table that you're familiar from junior high school, and then x is 0, what is y, x is 1, what is y, and so on and so forth. And those that they don't make sense, like x is 1, y is negative 1 doesn't make sense, so you just throw them out and trial and error, the answer is there. Alright? But we want to do it systematically. So let's continue and see what they say. By the way, I have let's continue for this table that I have. Let's see how the graph of this comes. The graph is the set of all possibilities. The graph has millions of, not millions, you can't put any number. It's infinitely many points. Out of all possibilities, only one of them we are interested, and we want to find that one systematically. Now, graph is a set, but a sketch of the graph is the drawing of that, the geometrically representing that. But what has become part of vocabulary that we say graph it. But graph in reality is a set. You can graph a set, but a sketch, the graph of that set, is the geometrical representation of that. So let's do the geometrical representation of this argument, and that is what I put it here for you. So you know, is basic algebra, y equal 2x minus 3, 2 is a slope of the line, and minus 3 is y-intercept. Now I'm going to give one video geared to just this subject. Why is it called a slope? What does a slope mean? Most students, they say rise over run. I don't know what rise over run mean really. It's not a mathematical terminology. It's just for basic algebra to demonstrate. So where does it come from? Why is it, by the way, rise over run? Why not run over rise? And what does y-intercept mean? Why do they come from? It's not that we start from here and take it for granted and call it definition. This is definition. So what is the motive of definition? Where does definition come from? Who made the definition? This is the style of my teaching. I take you deep into the subject and say where they come from. Not that this is formal, this is the equation and this is the slope and do it. This is for a kitchen, for a chef to teach to the cook how to, the recipe. This is not mathematics. Mathematics is critical thinking, discovery, pattern seeking. This is mathematics. Okay then, so this is the graph of that. I start from y-intercept, which is -3, Then by similarity of triangle, I go so-called rise over run is 2 over 1. 2 is same as 2 over 1. So go 1 to the right, 2 units up. I get my second point, and 2 points determines a unique line, and I draw the line. By the way, 2 points, 2 distinct points determine a unique line is not true. It's only true for plane geometry and analytical geometry, in a sense, the coordinate, the Cartesian plane. If you change the geometry, that is not true. I'm not going to go over that. It's very interesting, but something for you to think about. So don't take everything for granted. Always expand your mind. Between 2 points, there is only one straight line can draw. Can I draw more than one? Why you cannot? Because you have mind setup. Your mind setup is on the plane. So what about if I change the plane? Here it is, discovery comes. And history is full of them. You know, modern algebra in, a polynomial of degree 5 and more. That's what Abel, I'm going a little bit outside the subject. For hundreds of years, mathematicians were working to find a formula to be a general, that they can solve every polynomial equation using the coefficients of them, to find the root of them by their coefficients. But finally, Abel came and he thought that he discovered the formula, so he published it. And when the editors, they read it, they didn't even notice. They thought, you know, that is correct. They did publish it. And it is himself who discovered that there was mistake in his paper. So what did he do? He said, if P, then Q. The counterpositive of that is, if not Q, then not P. So he came to the idea that, what about if there is no formula you can find? Bingo. He came to the absolute right idea. And he proved that there is no formula. Hundreds of years, mathematician was mind set up to find that formula. You see how you can go to counterpositive or converse and make discoveries that others didn't even think about. Okay, now let's go and continue with the second one. Now we finished with the first, finish. That is the graph of that finished. Now we go to the second one. What does the second one say? The second part of it. The other shepherd, the first shepherd now is talking. He said, what did he say? He said, hey, my friend, that is not fair. If you give me one of yours, stop, one of yours. What does that mean? I don't have the paper here. The first one had what? X. The other one had Y. He said, if you give me one of yours. So now Y is missing one, and X number is gaining one. So the first one now has X plus 1 number of goats. Second one has Y less 1 number of goats. That is the relation between them. Do you follow me? Now, what does he say? He said, then we will be equal. We will have equal number of lamb. So this relation, we set them equal. Here it is, if you like to write them. X plus 1 equals to Y minus 1. The rest of them is what? Simple arithmetic, simple algebra. Just take the other side. That's exactly what, when you take this side and add to that, you get or bring -1 this side and add, you get this one. That is really what the word algebra means. Comes from the Arabic word al-jabr, which is, I think Khwarazmi was the one who, author of the book, and that word was adapted from Arabic word. Means exactly transposition, means taking one thing and putting the other side. Do you follow me? So that's what algebra means. So we took what? We took this one, we bring it here and adjust it and clean it, and we end up with again another equation in about 2 variables. Now if we go through the table of this one, set it up, again by trial and error we end up with the number. Now what I have done is I have sketched the graph of this one for you also. If you want, you are welcome to write it. Now I have sketched the graph of this for you that I would like to also show you the graph. Now the graph of x equals, y equals x plus 2. Again, the y-intercept is 2, so I start from 2. That is one of my points. Y-intercept is a point. Every line, except vertical line, hits the y-axis somewhere. So we take advantage of this property and we come up with this formula. And again, the question that we should ask, as I already asked you, why not, they call it rise over run, why not run over rise? Why not the angle that the line makes with the horizontal axis, with any horizontal line, that angle, based on that angle, we define the slope. What kind of obstacle you may face, they are the things that you have to play with. This is the beauty of mathematics, if you get the art to think that way. Okay, this is the graph of that. Now, what I am going to do, in order to satisfy both of the argument, so that the both of them is the intersection of them, the intersection of these two graphs. This graph has infinitely many points. One of the possibilities we want, the other one is same. So I have that one. Oh yes, I do. Fantastic. Here it is. This is the graph. And again, my apology, I don't have anybody behind the camera to, and I'm skin, to zoom it for me. Okay, now here, the intersection of them is 5, 7. Fantastic. 5, if he gives 1 to 7, 5 becomes 4, 7 becomes 8, and 8 is twice 4. Now, if 7 gives 1 to 5, 7 becomes 6, 5 becomes 6, they are equal. So that's it. We finished. We answered the question. So again, I go over that. My advice to you is cut the word problem into segments, and each time when you get the slightest information, pause, stop, and change it into their equivalent mathematical symbol. That's all there is into that. Even most complicated word problem, you always start with a small one. Once you get the technique, the large and complicated one is same. You break it down into pieces. That's really why, again, I'm repeating myself, paraphrasing. Okay, now let's go to the story about that I promised you I will give it to you. I haven't written anything here for you. The story is from, let's say, once upon a time, in a land far, far away, in the land of Aladdin and Sinbad, there was a man. He was kind of wealthy and running kind of horse riding business he had, and he had some of the most expensive horses in horse riding, you know, betting. That was his business. He was on his deathbed, and he gave his wealth, his will, for he had 3 sons, and he said that one half of my wealth should go to my oldest son. 1/3 goes to my middle son, and 1/9 goes to my younger son. Are you with me so far? Then the guy passed away. So the sons came together, and there are 17 racing horses, very valuable. And they said, well, how can we divide that one? 17 is a prime number, and I cannot say 1/2 of it, 1/3 of it, and 1/9 of it. What are we going to do? They said, well, if we cut them off, at those days there was no Jack in the Box in Texas, so that they could kill them and cut them into half, into pieces, and then divide it and take it there, and Jack in the Box can make hamburger from them. But anyhow, so what did they do? They said, let's go to the Imam. The Imam is the one who lead people for the prayer in Islamic world. And ask him to help us to solve the problem, and whatever he said, we agree. So he will be kind of our judge. So they went to the Imam, was a little bit distance, and they told him what is the story. He said the father has left 17 horses, and we don't know how to divide it according to his will. Then the Imam looked at them. He got the answer right away. He was a smart Imam, and he smiled. He said, "I have the solution for you. Go and bring all your horses halfway between. There was some stable somewhere, and leave it there. And whatever I pass judgment, you have to accept." They said, "Of course, we are here for that. Whatever you say, we all agree." He said, "Leave them there. I'm going to come and solve it after the prayer, after the let's say afternoon prayer." So after afternoon prayer, he ride his horse, the Imam, who also had a racing horse, a very valuable. He takes it and go there. The brothers are waiting for him. So he says that, "You borrow your horses, they're all over there." He said, "Okay, I'm going to give my horse to you so that you become 18. Then we can divide it according to your father's will." They said, "Well, it's very nice of you, but you are Imam, we are supposed to give you. You are giving us, you are very generous." He says, "Well, I'm the Imam, that's right, I'm a peacemaker, and I don't want any argument between you. So I give my horse to you, and I get the reward from God." We call him Allah. Huh? So he gives the horse, he leaves it to the stable, am I pronouncing correct? A stable. And leave it there in the corner. But he says, "Whatever I divide and give to you, you must leave. Don't stay." Because if they stay, they would know what happened at the end. So he says, then they agree. So there are 18 horses now, all right? He gave 1/2 of it, which is 9, to the older son. Goodbye, he leaves happily. Then he gives 1/3 of 18, which is what? 1/8 of 18, well, excuse me, 1/3 of 18, which is what? 6, to the second son. And he leaves. So right now he has given 9 and 6, which is 15. Is that right? Then he gives 1/9 of 18, which is what? Which is 2, to the younger son, and he says, "Go." So 15 and 2 is 17. Do you follow me? So it's 9, 6, and 2. 9 and 6 is 15, and 2 is 17. They all live happily, and the Imam's horse is in there. He sits on his horse and go back home. He didn't really give his horse to them. See, I'm playing with my dad. No, my dear respected friend, and the brothers and sisters, daughters and sons, I would like to say that it's a kind of art of the teaching to have a sense of humor. And so I always give some joke and try to have a smiling at my students to be happy in the class. And also one other advice I have for you is that your teachers are like your parents. You have to love them and respect them. And you have kind of moral obligation for that. And they are not your enemies, my dear friend. They are your best possible friend. So that is another advice I have, besides the advice I gave you and hints for how to solve word problems. So the next video I'm going to discuss in detail about graphing lines and the equation of 2 variables, and also what the slope is, where they come from, where the ideas come, etc., etc. And until then, I salute you all and wish you all success. Salam.